Your words carry more weight than you realize. In this week's talk, we'll look at the power of words to wound or to heal, and we'll learn how to leverage them to enrich the people in your life.
It is amazing the stuff that your brain chooses to remember and the stuff that just is completely gone when you need it. There are a lot of things that I would love to remember and I just can't. Like the password for whichever account I'm trying to get into. I can't remember the password, and I can't remember where I wrote down the paper copy of the password in case I forgot. And I can't remember which account the two-factor authentication code gets texted to because it's been too long since I set it up, and I can't remember the recovery email or the recovery password to that email. I just can't remember stuff when I need it. I can't remember where one of my 7 quarter-inch sockets are because I keep losing them and I keep buying more. Why all the quarter-inch ones? I don't know. Something about the little ones, they just go missing. Need to go and buy another one. I can't remember what John said in the announcements. And what was the website we're supposed to go to for that? Where is that? I can't even remember why I walked from the bedroom into the kitchen. You ever have that? Like, why am I here? Hungry? No, not hungry. Thermostat? No, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that I can't remember. You know what I do remember really well? I remember taking a new job and moving to a new state, working for a church, and they had this big party to welcome all of the people to meet the new staff member. And I remember the spouse of one of our other staff members. I'd not even worked my first day at this job. I remember the spouse of one of them coming up to me at the party and saying, "Hey, I wouldn't bother buying a house. You're not going to last a year." Well, welcome to town, Chris. I remember that really well. I don't remember anything else that happened that whole week, but I remember that moment. I remember when one of my best friends, when Natasha and I were dating, one of my best friends came up to me and said, "Natasha used to be a kind and sweet person, but you have corrupted her. I don't even know her anymore." I said, "Ouch. Okay, thanks. I thought I was a good influence." I remember in 3rd grade being made fun of because I was skinny. Okay? That was a long time ago. But yet I have those memories in astounding 4K detail, and I can just replay them again and again in my mind. How many of you guys have a memory like that from middle school, grade school? I remember when somebody made fun of me. I remember when mom said, "Oh, you're not going out in that, are you?" I remember when dad said, "You need to aim a little bit lower, sweetheart. You're never going to get that kind of a job." You guys remember those things? You ever wonder, why is that? Why would your brain latch onto something hurtful and negative and hang on for so long, and you can't even remember the important stuff you were supposed to pick up at Aldi? You can't even remember to check your phone before you leave Aldi because your wife texted you in case you forgot, and you somehow forgot to even look at the phone. And you get back home without the brown sugar for the pumpkin spice lattes. Why do you remember the hurtful, bad stuff? It's because those words are more powerful than we realize. And today I want to talk about the amazing power of that weapon inside of your mouth to do good or evil. Before we dive in, I want to take a minute to just give a shout out to Pastor Craig Groeschel at Life Church. This whole series was inspired by a series that they did years ago, and they generously gave us permission to use all of their graphics and their really fun intro song. So thank you to them. I love their stuff and just really appreciate them. But I want to talk today about the power of criticism. That you may not realize how much power you hold. So you write this down in your notes. If you're online, you can get this on your phone. Check the link in the description on whatever platform you're on. But here's the reality. Criticism cuts deeply and it heals slowly. And I say slowly, like for some of us, like, does it ever really heal? I don't know. Sometimes it feels like it doesn't. Those critical remarks, those critical words, they cut deep. It really hurts, and it takes a long time to heal. And when I was preparing this talk, I was digging in. I did a deep dive, kind of like last week, on all of the psychological research. And then I said, man, you don't need the research because you've lived it. You don't need a study to tell you it hurts because you've walked around with the wounds. You know the power of that critical word, and how sometimes you can have 10 compliments on your post, but the one person that says, ooh, maybe need to cut back on the ice cream a little bit, babe, that's the only thing you remember, right? The negative is so much more powerful. You don't need me to give you research to tell you that those thoughts, those comments that come from outside, you have this tendency to take them and just hit replay like a reel on a loop again and again in your mind. And it hurts every time. You don't need the research to tell you that sometimes that hurt soaks in so deeply that it becomes part of your self-concept. And that one thing that one person said to you that one time still affects the way you look at yourself in the mirror every single day. And you know, because you've lived it, that the closer somebody is to you, the deeper that cut goes. It hurts. And there are some times when you read stuff in the Bible and you're like, okay, this doesn't necessarily relate to me, but I believe it's true. Today, I want to show you a passage from the Bible that is absolutely relatable. I think we've all lived it. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 18. The Bible says that careless words stab like a sword. Now, I didn't have a sword, but I got this, and it's sharp, and it can do some damage if I just go around like this to people. Some of you guys, you've been on the receiving end of that. Why can't you be more like Brad? He's got a job. He's got a nice car. Well, you know, you'd really be pretty if you just lost a few pounds and learned how to do makeup. Stab. Right? It hurts. It hurts. Well, look, honey, it's not your fault. You're just a little bit slow. You're just a little bit dull. You like the sound effects? And yeah. Got to make light of it because it does hurt. You're just a little bit annoying. You're just a little bit extra. You're just a little bit psycho. You're just a little bit dull. You just don't know when to stop talking. You just need to be a little bit something different than you are, and then you'll be enough. And I think we've all been on the receiving end of some comments. And the amazing thing is, it doesn't take a lot, sometimes just once. And you carry it for life. And it hurts. And we all know people, okay? You probably have a few in your life that are careless word stabbing ninjas. Every time, everybody that they're around just, on guard. Okay? We all know somebody like that. I'm having too much fun with this. This is dangerous. Okay? Now let's be honest, okay? When we started today's talk and you heard the title was criticism, a lot of you guys thought, oh man, I wish my boss was here today. They could really hear this. I wish my mother-in-law was here. Hey, Mom, watch this, thinking of you today as I'm in church. Right? You all know somebody. Let me ask you, though. Who is thinking that about you? Criticism. Who's here thinking, man, I hope Jason's listening today. Oof, he needs this. I hope Becky is paying attention and soaks this in. You say, well, it's not me. I'm the victim of this stuff. I'm not the perpetrator of the emotional damage. But here's the tricky thing about criticism. Write this down in your notes. Criticism is hard to see in the mirror. It's easy to see how somebody else's comments hurt you. It's easy to see how your teacher's comments, how your coach's comments, how your daughter's comments hurt you. But sometimes it's hard to see how your comments are hurting others because you're not criticizing. You're just trying to prepare your son for adulthood. Not being critical, just trying to toughen you up a little bit, son. But research says that if your son perceives what you're saying as critical and negative, it hurts just the same no matter how you meant it. The pain completely depends on the person receiving the comment. Well, I'm not being critical. I'm just joking. Like, learn to take a joke, lady. Come on, we're just having fun. It's just a joke. But research also says that humor and satire actually do more emotional harm than direct criticism. Did you know that? Somebody's making up a song about you and your runny nose in second grade. That actually sticks with you longer. And some of you say, well, look, it's not my fault that people have thin skin. People just need to learn to toughen up a little. When I was a kid growing up in America, you didn't have to be so sensitive. Okay? And I hear what you're saying, but that's kind of like saying, look, it's not my fault that my neighbors have glass that's too thin to repel bullets. I'm going to fire my firearm in the backyard. It's not my fault where it goes. But as soon as you pull the trigger, you're responsible for wherever that bullet ends up. And we do the same thing with our words. See, I want to put this back up on the screens. Put that verse up there, that next one. After criticism is hard to see. Yeah. Look at this word. You guys tell me, what is this word right here in the room? Careless. Careless words stab like a sword. See, I don't think any of you guys woke up today and thought, you know what? I want to figure out how I can injure my wife deeply today. Right? You don't do that on purpose. None of you are holding that newborn baby and thinking someday I'm going to just eviscerate you with words, right? Nobody thinks that. But it's careless words. Careless words stab like a sword. Things that you didn't even know were hurting, things that you didn't mean for them to take personally can end up doing great damage. We want to be careful. Now, here's the good news, because that is kind of depressing when we talk about it that way. That's only half of the verse. Okay? So here's the other half. Careless words stab like a sword, but the words of wise people bring healing. Everybody go, whew. Yeah, I thought this was going to be a really depressing talk. Now there's a hope, right? You're telling me there's a chance. Careless words stab like a sword, but the words of the wise bring healing. Okay, I cut my finger trying to fix a computer part last week, and it still has a Band-Aid on it. Sometimes you need healing. And the truth is, the Bible says that life and death are in the power of the tongue. Okay, your words carry immense weight and power, especially the closer the relationship is to you. But if you're careless, you end up hurting people. If you want to do good to the people around you and build the people around you up, you got to be wise. So both options are on the table for you, stab or Band-Aid. And you get to be either one you want. So you got to decide today, which do you want to be? Okay? I'll give you two options. The first one, put this up on the screens. You can write this down in your notes. You can be a fault finder. It's not hard. Anybody can do it. You can spend your life becoming an expert at dealing out pain. You can be a fault finder because the reality is there's plenty of material out there. See, everybody, the Bible says that all of us are broken by sin, that all of us have missed perfection by a long shot. There's nobody righteous, the Bible says, not even one. And if you look, you can find it. See, write this down in your notes. You can always find faults if you look for them. Some of you guys are really good at it. Last week, we talked about complaints and how if you really focus on the things that are wrong in life, you can find plenty of stuff to complain about. And I've been there. You can also find plenty of stuff to criticize. There's never a lack of material, whether it's how somebody acts, how somebody looks, how somebody smells, how they talk, what they do, whether they got on time or not. Okay, there's plenty of stuff. But when you set out to decide if you want to be a fault finder or not, let me just share a really interesting piece of info from the Old Testament. Okay, you're all familiar with Satan, I think. Pretty familiar concept. This is crazy. Put that up on the screens. All right, look at this. Satan, the term Satan, from Hebrews, literally means in Hebrew, the accuser. So I want you to think about this. As these people were trying to decide, okay, there's this extremely powerful, vile, and evil cosmic entity that wants to destroy humanity and hates God. What should we name him? And they went with the accuser. Because he's an expert at that. He's an expert at finding the things that you did wrong and just reminding you again and again. You know, you said you were going to pray for them, but you never had any intention to do that. You said you were going to show up, but you didn't show up. You completely forgot about it because you're so selfish. You said that you would never look at that stuff again, and you're looking at it every weekend. You said that you were going to change and start speaking nice to your kids, and here you are just yelling again. You said you were going to become a Cowboys fan, and you still haven't resigned the Packers. Okay? You said you were going to do it. You didn't do it. And he brings it up again and again and again. And look, you can spend your life finding the fault in everybody and putting everybody down the sides, making sure everybody knows that they're wrong. But do you really want to associate yourself literally with Satan? No, of course not. Okay? None of you guys woke up today saying, man, how could I be more like Satan today? Okay? You're in the wrong religious gathering if you did. Okay? Pray for you. Now, you didn't do it. It's because careless words stab like a sword. Things you didn't mean to do bring great injury. And that's on the table for you. But there's another option. Okay? You can be a fault finder, or here's the other option. Write this down. You can be a hope dealer, not a Coke dealer. Please don't do that. Okay? It's on the screen, so nobody misheard me. Okay? You could be a hope dealer. You can be someone who makes it your goal in life to walk around with a box of Band-Aids and bring healing to people who have been wounded by somebody else's words. Because that is also on the table. And I know there are some people in your life, it's hard to believe that there's something positive and good and praiseworthy in that person. We've talked before about how people can become villains in your life, and it's hard to take a 3D view of a villain. You just want them to be bad all the time. But the truth is, all of us were made in God's image. And even the worst of humanity still carries echoes of God's image in them. Okay, and write this down. You can always find positives if you look for them. The challenge is that you have to look for them. And that's the part where the Bible says, careless words stab, but the words of the wise bring healing. What that tells me is the choice to bring healing takes a little intentionality. So let me share you another memory that I have. So years ago, we were traveling back from family vacation, and we stopped at this big gas station in St. Louis called Wally's. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen. Yeah, we got some Wally's enjoyers. It's like it's like Buc-ee's Light. And I love Wally's. So we went into Wally's. Okay, it's winter, and I was in the store for less than 5 minutes. And in that span of time, a store employee came up to me. I was wearing these leather snow boots. Store employee came up and said, man, I love those boots. Those are really nice. Where did you get those? I said, oh, these? Okay, because I'm a Midwesterner. Oh, I got a great deal on these. These were actually cheap. I bought them at Ross. Really good deal. I thought, wow, that feels good. Okay, and so I went to the bathroom, and I'm walking back up to the front of the store, and I'm doing my I'm feeling good about my walk. I got the boots, I'm styling and this is good. I never liked these boots more than I do today. And I get up to the register and we're buying way too much stuff at Wally's because there's a lot to buy. And the cashier says, you know what? That's a really nice mustache that you have. Sometimes in winter it's longer. Thanks. Yeah. That's a good mustache. And I walked back out to the van, and Natasha and I are sitting in the van, and I said, man, that's amazing. I got 2 compliments in 4 minutes. And I said to her, it's almost as though they told their employees, when you're going around doing your work, look for something that you can compliment and just be liberal with compliments. And you know what? I believe that's exactly what they do. And I think that's genius. Because you know what? That one comment brightened my whole day. And even if I know that they were doing it because they were looking out for it, it's not like they were lying. It's not flattery. It's being intentional. See, God says this in Ephesians 4, verse 29. He says, "Let everything that you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them." There's a very clear distinction between being a fault finder and a hope dealer. And God says, I want you all to be wise with your words, to be thoughtful, and to walk around saying, who can I lift today? Who can I inspire today? Now I know, you said, well, Chris, sometimes correction needs to happen. You're right. You're absolutely right. There's a place to speak painful words in love and say, hey, somebody's got to tell you this. You need to change. You're hurting the people around you. But even then, you can do it with kindness. And even then, that should be the exception to the rule. It should be that I'm doing so much more encouraging that when I do need to correct, people know very well what I think of them and that I think they're great. You can be whichever you want. Fault finder, hope dealer. But as you choose, I want you to consider, which one do you think God is? If Satan literally means accuser, okay, he's literally fault finder, which do you think God is? And I know you know what the obvious answer is, but I want you to think about it for a minute, because I think for some of us, it's hard to reconcile with God in that role. I've shared this story before, but man, it's still so appropriate for today. Years ago, my family, we were in a church service, an evening service, a lot of worship, and then at the end, they'd ask you to come up, and their prayer team would just pray over you, and they would be listening, and they said, hey, if we feel like we have something, a word from the Lord that He wants us to share with you, we'll just tell you. Maybe He doesn't, but if He does, we'll say it. So I'm up there. They're praying for me. And this person from the prayer team said, I feel like I've got something from the Lord for you, for me, Chris. And they said, I feel like God just wants you to know He's so proud of you. And my immediate thought was, well, I didn't hear from the Lord. That can't be right. He's not proud of me. He's annoyed with me. He expects more from me than I'm here. I'm still on the way. God's frustrated with me. He's getting impatient with me because I should have the church at a much higher place than where I am right now. And I should have my family at a much better place right now. And I can't even go a single day without complaining about stuff. He's irritated with me. He's not proud of me. And I wrestled with that. It took me a couple of weeks in prayer for God to convince me that He actually meant it. And He was proud of me. And the reason is that I can be so critical outward, but I'm also so critical inward. Some of you guys know what that's like. Sometimes I don't even need somebody else's words to injure me because I'm taking the knife to myself because I'm hard on myself. And because I'm hard on myself and I expect so much of myself, I tend to take that dynamic and paste it onto God and say, that's how He is. He's hard on me too. But is that really? Is that really how He expresses Himself? Yes, God does, okay? I understand. God does expect a lot, okay? And God does give us laws and rules. But despite all of the brokenness and all of the messed up stuff and all of humanity, He still kept staying involved. He still keeps extending grace. This is the God that, knowing they're going to take His Son and nail Him to a cross and cheer as He dies, this is the God who shows up with angels when Jesus is born and says, hey, good news, I love humanity and I've come here to reconnect you all to me. This is the God that says, in spite of it all, I love you and I'm for you, and I believe in the best in you, and I'm going to stay with you as I bring that to life in you. And it was hard for me to reconcile with that. But let me tell you, until you believe that being a hope dealer is God's personality, until you believe that encouragement and Him smiling over you is part of God's personality, then you will always push back when He tries to grow that in you. But God celebrates you. God believes more in you than you believe in you. And He wants us to be people who take on that part of His nature, who walk through life looking for people that we can encourage, to be those who are wise, and to stop being careless with words, and to stop for a minute and think before we speak and say, is this going to wound someone or to build them up? And imagine what would happen if we got good at that. Imagine if your husband rose to the level of your belief in him. What kind of a man could he become? Imagine if the gay and lesbian community in your workplace, what if for every one criticism they heard from a Christian, they heard 10 positive things affirming their value as people? How would that change the way that they hear the gospel? What if your words of healing were the only positive in your daughter's life, as everyone on Snapchat and in school is tearing her down and saying she's not this enough, she's not that enough? What if you are the only thing standing and you stay the course and you hold and you give her an alternate view of herself, and she grows up believing that she is beautiful and valuable? Wouldn't that be worth investing to speak wise words? I think it would. Fault finder, hope dealer, both options are on the table. Which one do you want to be?
Hey there, just wanted to take a minute to say thanks for watching. If a friend sent you this link, it's because they believe what we talked about today is going to make a positive impact in your life. And if it did, there's probably somebody that you care about who could benefit from it. So take a minute to share this video with somebody. Post it to your timeline or send them a direct link. And if you're able, take a minute to give using the link at the bottom of the description on this video. One last thing. Maybe you feel a tug at your soul and you're ready to take the next step in your spiritual life and form a relationship with God. We've got folks here who would love to talk with you about it. So just text prayer to the number on your screen and we'll follow up with you. It's also in the description on this video in case that helps. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.